Welcome to rSlash Prorevenge, where OP gets a would-be pedophile arrested by the FBI. I found out today that my revenge was complete, so I came here to share it. My neighbor, who we shall call Christy, would report us to the HOA for literally everything she didn't like. Trash cans still on the street at 5 p.m. on trash day, reported. Kids bike outside while kids are still playing, reported. Didn't mow this weekend, typically I do this Monday nights, reported Monday morning. Dog barking at 2 in the afternoon as she and her dog walk on the path behind our house, reported. In many cases, these were not issues covered by the HOA, but due to repeated reporting, the board did fine us and I had to go spend the evening waiting through a 2-hour meeting to have them removed. This kept happening and was driving me nuts. Both my wife and I spoke to her and tried to find out why she felt this was okay, and she told us, "You just need to do a better job of being a good neighbor." Fast forward to early this summer. She posts on a neighborhood website sharing a video about the anti-vax movement. In general, the replies are pretty aggressive about telling her she is full of it. But she keeps pushing back, leading to a super long post about how we're all wrong and we should listen because she's a doctor. She signs it, Dr. Christy last name, naturopathic physician. At this point, I am mostly just wondering what the heck any kind of doctor would be against vaccines. This made no sense to me, so I started digging. I did find that Christy was listed as a doctor on sites where you could find physicians. I dug more into what exactly a naturopathic physician was and found that in my state of Colorado, they are regulated and are required to maintain a license to practice. I checked into it and found out the following. 1. Christy was not in the state database as a naturopathic physician. 2. The board who regulates it has an online reporting tool. At this point, I took all the information I had, grabbed screenshots, and checked my timeline and reported her as claiming to be a naturopathic physician when she was not. I then followed that up with this post on the neighborhood website. This is a hot button topic for me, and because of that and Christy signing her post as Dr. Last Name, I had to dig some. I, for one, am a huge fan of including whole person treatment. I think doctors of osteopathic medicine are wonderful as they work to integrate whole health into the picture with well-researched medical best practices. Naturopathy less so, which is the problem here. One researched article here breaks down a lot of the issues quite well. It's almost 13 years old, but still quite good at explaining the valid concerns. I further checked as Colorado does regulate naturopathy and I could not find any Christy last name listed there. My thought was that it is entirely possible that she holds a license to practice in Colorado and my search wasn't working. But even just searching her first name or zip code or my town or town near us provides no results for Christy last name. At this point, Christy locked the post and later deleted the entire thing. I was pretty dang happy that she removed the post, but today it got better. In the mail, I received a copy of the cease and desist letter that Christy received from the state about a month ago. It told her that she must cease and desist her practice immediately. OP, obviously you should report her to the HOA for running a business out of her home. Our next Reddit post is from dwasifar. Back in the day, I worked as an independent IT consultant and was hired on along with another independent to subcontract on a team for a major consulting house. We'll call it consulting house. Everyone else on the team was a consulting house employee. The two of us were not supposed to tell the client that we weren't part of consulting house, but the client figured it out pretty fast because we independents were doing most of the work while consulting house's code monkeys were busy filling out spreadsheets all day and going on team building exercises. But I digress. The project ran past its initial deadline and my contract expired. I stayed on a week-to-week basis as a professional courtesy to get the project finished, because I like the client, if not the team. Unfortunately, the consulting house project manager was booked somewhere else for his next gig, and they brought in a new guy to replace him. Let's call him David Stress. David flew in on a Monday morning to get the project handed off to him, and immediately started pissing on everything to mark his territory. He was derogatory and belittling to the team and liked to raise his voice. I was working in my office, well, actually a closet with folding tables that I shared with 3 other team members, and didn't hear what he was saying out in the main office, but I could sure hear his tone. Then he burst into the office and demanded, "How are we doing specific payroll-related conversion task?" I said, "We're using Program X." He waved his hand dismissively and scoffed, "That's stupid. Program X won't work for this. You need to do something else." The other indie was in the room at the time, and she saw me coming up out of my chair. She told me later she thought I was going to deck him. I knew he was full of garbage because I wrote Program X. It was custom code for this project, and he had no way of knowing what it would or wouldn't do. He was just trying to bully me and be the alpha dog. I didn't deck him. Instead, I went to the client's payroll manager with whom I'd been working closely for months, and who was driving the client side of the project. I laid it on the line. I said, "Look, I know you know I don't work for Closing House. I'm here on an independent contract. That contract is up, and I've been working here week to week just to get you guys through." She told me she was aware of this. Okay, this new guy, David Stress, is a bully and a blowhard, and I won't work with him. I have no contract at this point, and with him running the project, I won't be back next week. I'm not asking you to do anything specific about it. I'm just letting you know as a courtesy so you can plan to transition my work to someone else. She sat back in her chair, thought a moment, and said, "Okay, thanks for letting me know." 2 hours later, David Stress was removed from his new position. The payroll manager, faced with losing the one technical guy on the team who actually knew what was going on with a very complicated payroll system, called Closing House and said, "We don't want this new guy, take him away." Closing House rearranged some things to keep the original project manager with the project. The funniest part of the whole thing was that Consulting House had scheduled a welcome dinner for David at a posh steakhouse that evening. Rather than create further embarrassment of canceling the dinner, they actually went ahead with it as a farewell dinner for David, who had been on the project for less than 1 day. It was fun to watch him try to put on a brave face for that. OP, what I want to know is, did you tell this guy that you were the reason that you got him fired? Because, that would have been so tempting to do. Oh, by the way, jerkface, I wrote Program X, so I knew you were full of garbage. And I was the one who got you fired. See ya! Our next Reddit post is from Hi Internet Friend. I put a trampoline in my backyard in early 2017. I have 3 young boys, and we have enjoyed it immensely. My neighbor, the HOA president at the time, went to sell his house in spring of 2018, and his realtor said the trampoline in my backyard might be a detriment to getting top dollar for his home. So he convinced the neighbor on the other side of my house to complain as well. Out of the blue, I received a message from the HOA property manager that the neighbors complained and I would need to submit a form to get it approved. Intermission. What's sad is that I was friendly with both of these people. They had been in my home. They could have talked to me face to face. With one of the neighbors, I paid for our shared fence at her request, since her neighbor on her other side wouldn't contribute to their shared fence. Another board member and another piece of garbage. I would have been willing to dig a hole for the trampoline to hide it more, or purchase a new one with elastic bands rather than springs to make it quieter. Both of those options are cheaper than getting a lawyer. But nobody asked. Nobody came to me to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart discussion about their concerns. A few ironies. These are 5-bedroom homes. Clearly, people with kids are going to move in, and they're going to be noisy in their backyard with or without play equipment. The guy who sold his home smoked like a chimney. I don't think my trampoline should have been his top concern. The guy who ended up buying his home are a great family with 2 kids who don't care about toys in other people's backyards. My neighbors have raised kids to adulthood, one of them 2 very active boys. When I pointed this out to her, the words that actually came out of her mouth were, "I know it's challenging to raise boys, but we're at different stages of our lives." As if that justified her trying to screw me. Back to the story. I filled out the form and sent it in. The Architectural Review Committee denied it a month later. I appealed the decision and met with the board in August. They sent me a letter and said it was in violation. I asked which rules it violated. They never sent me a letter, so I asked again a week ago. The property manager was adamant that she had sent the letter, but I asked for proof. She forwarded an email where she put my name in the to field after the fact. I had a strong suspicion it was after the fact due to the following reasons. An HOA meeting was mentioned that never took place. The responses to my questions varied in color, indicating they had been edited at different times. She responded immediately to my request for proof by indicating she would forward the email, but then took an hour, presumably editing a draft she never sent. She cited a rule early in the email, but then cited an additional rule later that superseded the first. The first cited rule could have simply been omitted. The message was not marked as forwarded message at the top, and the sent time didn't include seconds. None of these things are a smoking gun, but they're suspicious. I asked the other people in the to field if they received a copy of the email with my name in the address field. The only honest member of the board replied he hadn't. The rest remained silent because they didn't want to look like they and the property manager dropped the ball. Intermission. If you're curious why the board didn't like my trampoline, here is the rationale provided in the letter that was never sent. Due to the close proximity of the homes to each other and the small yards, the trampoline is unsightly to the homes surrounding it. Realtors for those homes surrounding you have stated that it is a detraction to selling homes and is lowering the home values of those around it. There have also been neighbor complaints regarding the noise level, which makes those homeowners unable to enjoy their homes. They are also unable to use certain portions of their homes while the trampoline is being used. My kids all weigh under 35 pounds. They go to bed at 7 p.m. and don't jump on the trampoline in the morning before 10 a.m. My neighbors bought homes 10 feet away from mine. What did they expect? Back to the story. The year-end meeting was scheduled for yesterday, and 4 board positions were up for election. I got 3 of my friends on the street to run with me. I went door to door every day for a week and spoke with the majority of homeowners about their discontent with the street. I got a third of the community to sign proxy forms stating that I would vote on their behalf. I went to the meeting last night and put these fools on blast. I listed calmly all the ways the current board was failing the community and my plan to right their wrongs. My vote was a landslide in favor of myself and my friends getting elected. One awful board member remains, but he is the minority. We fired the property manager who was uncommunicative and flat out dishonest. The trampoline endures. The only bummer now is I have to manage a street which includes some legit crazy people. But this whole episode has convinced my wife that we will never live in an HOA again, which I count as a huge victory in addition to the trampoline remaining where it is today. OP, that story was looking a little dicey for a while, but I'm glad that you managed to bounce back. Our next Reddit post is from PME Shrek Boobs. After I broke up with my ex, I would keep tabs on him. Rumor, hearsay, friendly whispers, and public social media posts alike, due to the threat of violence. He'd occasionally post something about burning down my house, or he'd text a mutual friend and try to figure out where I'd moved to. So I felt justified, and we live in a very small town, so gossip flowed like honey. In reality, I was assuaging my anxiety by exerting what little control I could in that particular area in my life. Everything ended up documented for legal reasons to give it more legitimacy. At the time, friendly custody talks had broken down into we need attorneys to mediate. And due to the fact that I wouldn't release my daughter into his care without a custody agreement, I started to receive threats from both him and his family. Mostly along the lines of, "If you're gone, the baby will be ours." One specific threat that still sticks with me was to burn down my apartment building, prompting me to move. My social worker / court-appointed attorney never received the requested documents for custody, so my concerns went from legal issues to my own physical safety rather quickly. After a while, it went from so-and-so is threatening you online to, did you hear that so-and-so got kicked out of where he was staying for trying to sleep with his roommate's 12-year-old cousin? And so-and-so isn't allowed near this person's 14-year-old daughter anymore because they caught him texting her nudes. I heard about 3 different young girls who had possibly been victimized by this dude, which was believable. He had pursued me when I was 19 and he was 26, and I look very young for my age. We broke up in part due to him being arrested for, quote, minor sexual crimes. All of these girls were coming from slightly trashy families with run-ins with the law, so he probably knew that the adults around would be wary of reporting him. So I reported him and all the online handles I knew he used to the mother effing FBI. Straight up went to the center of missing and exploited children on his butt. Not 2 months later, I get a message from someone saying, "Did you hear that so-and-so got arrested in a sting?" He had been trying to sleep with this 12-year-old girl offline, and when he went to meet up with her, it ended up being a setup with the state police or something. He caught extra charges thanks to the whips and handcuffs he had in his backpack. Now he's in jail and a registered sex offender. If he had just not threatened me, I never would have paid attention to gossip concerning him, and he probably would have gotten away with his garbage for years. Hello, my name is Chris Hansen. Why don't you have a seat right there? That was rSlash, and just a reminder, I have a merch store. You can find the link down in the description.